Well, welcome everyone. It's great to see you all and be with you all on this call. I'm here today with Reverend Philip Edell, who is Chaplain and Director at the Mission to Seafarers in Dunkirk, France. Welcome, Philip, to this conversation.
Thank you, Jason. It's a great pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Before joining the mission, Philip spent more than 20 years in IT. So in this period where many of you, no doubt, are thinking about how to kickstart your digital ministry to seafarers, it's great to have a real pro with us to have a conversation with him. Well, we're in this period where a lot of us are thinking about how to do more digital ministry because of COVID-19. Most seafarer centers at this time are closing or closed, and ship visiting is becoming difficult, if not impossible, in many places. So many are turning to digital tools. Yet it's not necessarily self-evident in all cases. There's so many different tools and so many ways of doing things, but what should you do? What can you do? And some chaplains have been doing this for many years and so are sort of right away effective. But there's others that haven't done much of this, and so it's great to have a meaningful conversation with Philip about how perhaps to kickstart to boost your seafarers conversations online. So in the conversation today, Philip, I'd love to get some sort of action points that chaplains and ship visitors can put into place right away in the next week to move forward on digital chaplaincy. And so, Philip, as you think about digital chaplaincy, where would you start in digital chaplaincy in the coming days?
Well, thanks very much for asking the question. But the first thing I would want to advise everybody is just to keep it simple. Don't try and reinvent the wheel here. You may well find that the first thing you should do is use your usual channel to contact the Port Authority, the Port Welfare Committee, the pilots, the shipping agents, all the people who you know in the port, and let them know exactly what services you can provide. In your local context, you might be using a Facebook group that you're already networking with seafarers. It's great to continue that. You may have other apps that you use. You may still be able to go to gangplanks and give the all-important access to seafarers. So the first thing is, put the message out there. What can you do?
Some of the question is, it's great to start digital ministry, but how do I get the internet into the hands of seafarers? What might you counsel ship visitors or those to do? I mean, what might they be able to do to help get the internet still in the hands of seafarers who might not have it?
Well, for example, I know that in Vlissingen, the chaplain still has the possibility to go up the gangway and to distribute his usual SIM cards. So that's obviously a very great help to seafarers who maybe just come on a long voyage, they've run out of data, and they need to restock. It's very similar as to we'd all do in our seafarer centres. We might find that there's portside Wi-Fi in some lucky ports. I know that's often a bone of contention. And we might also find that there are increasingly some ships that offer a limited amount of data on a monthly basis to their seafarers. So you're not going to be able to use Facebook to stream a video with seafarers in that situation, but you're certainly going to be able to send them text messages just to say how you're doing, to give them a bit of encouragement and to say that you're thinking of them. And in the case of the mission, you're praying for them.
I want to just dwell on that just for just a moment, because sometimes I think ship visitors and chaplains think, well, I want to stream a digital church service, or I want to send some big video or all that sort of thing. Talk us through just the small things like texting with seafarers. Why is that important, and how would you suggest that could be useful in the coming few days?
Yeah, I mean, texting is got to be useful because it uses very little data, literally just sending a few characters. So that's going to be most useful when seafarers don't have a lot of data. And generally, if they have any data at all, it's going to be used to talk to their families, to see image of their families. I think what we're trying to do with our digital chaplaincy, with our digital theology, is just to remind the seafarers that they're not alone, that they could still be isolated and feeling unhappy on their ship. And in the same way that we could shake their hands and have a face-to-face contact, just having a little swap of text will give the seafarer, to some degree, a pastoral contact and make them feel a little bit valued in the way that we normally do when we go up the gangway and we do our ship visits.
Well, some might say it's all well and good to have this idea that, you know, if I can, you know, email these seafarers, but my seafarer center is closed or my ship visiting is done. I don't have any new contacts. Who am I supposed to talk to? So what would you say in the case where chaplains or ship visitors are thinking, my ministry is closed, what can I do if my ministry is completely closed?
It's a really good point there. The most chaplains, if they're anything like me, will have had over the last 12 to 24 months a lot of seafarers who've used various networks to contact us to say that they're coming into port, or perhaps they've said, we're coming in for a quick visit, could you be at the quayside with a SIM card? So when I go back through my Facebook contacts, through my email contacts, there are actually a huge number of seafarers who I've had some kind of contact with over the last 2 years. So the first point for actually building a list of seafarers is to perhaps check your contacts, check your email. How many times have you sent an email to master at ... because you had some business to do with a ship? So that's it. Look through your Facebook networks or your WeChat networks and have a look. And every time there's been a seafarer contact for the last couple of years, pop those guys a message saying, hi, we're here, we're thinking of you. Is there anything we can do to help you? Is there anybody on your ship who would like to invite us to have a little contact with?
Next challenge that I can think about, and that is, okay, fine, the chaplain has all those contacts or the key person in the ministry has those contacts, but is this something then just the one person does alone? Or the problem is many of these seafarer centers is that it's not just the one person now without work, it's the whole team doesn't have anything to do. So how would you suggest that a team could work on this digital chaplaincy work? What would you do in the next few days to put something in place?
To give you the example of what we've been doing in Dunkirk, I have 3 colleagues who, one of whom speaks Tagalog, and she's from the Philippines, another one of whom is Russian. So it's been quite easy for me, because I know they're in France, they're locked up at home looking for things to do, to pass on those contacts. And they already have their own networks of seafarers that they've contacted in their own languages during the last few months. So they're not only using those networks to extend the message that we're kind of open for a digital chaplaincy, and we may not be able to offer you the same kind of relaxation in our center, but we'll certainly be able to offer you some kind of support and some kind of contact. So find out what your staff are up to, see if they've got any contacts, and use that to leverage the communications network that you have. The other thing, which is slightly separate, I am plugged into a church network. So the priest in the church closest to me, I said to her, we've got a lot of seafarers now we'd like to talk to. And she was very kindly able to put something in the newsletter that was emailed out, trawling for volunteers. So that immediately gave us 2 more people who are prepared to have a go and have a chat with seafarers. And I think this could be really interesting, not just for this immediate crisis, but as another way for tying congregations in to the work that we do on a daily basis.
Some have suggested that perhaps as well, this creates opportunity for us to broaden our vision, and so certainly most of our work is with active seafarers. What could we do perhaps also for seafarers in our own countries, in our own communities, who might be retired or alone, or in other ways? I mean, in many places now they're self-isolating. We couldn't physically go to visit them. What sort of new means might you suggest to get in contact with them?
Well, I certainly say from my own experience that I've been contacted by 2 retired seafarers who regularly visit the club. They don't have families. It's how they feel connected with the seafarer community and that family, that strong sense of belonging that they had when they were crewmen, that sadly when they become retired and stay at home. So those networks as well can be contacted. If they're local, perhaps a phone call is more easy. If they are online, some of them are, then they might be able to get involved in some kind of contact. Certainly, we can text them and say, how are you doing? We're thinking of you. But we also might be able to involve them in some ongoing conversations with other seafarers. Another community, you hinted at it, is the widows of seafarers. Now, these, in my port of Dunkirk, there are a number of ladies whose husbands were seafarers who perhaps aren't able to do ship visiting anymore, but have been very keen ship visitors 10, 15 years ago, and are now on their own. And anything we can do to reassure that community that we're there for them as well, I think is a great thing. So I think that idea is really good.
Well, Philip, thank you so much for these great ideas. I'm so glad that you're available to sort of use your experience both in the IT world and the pastoral world to talk to us about digital chaplaincy. It'd be great to stay in touch, and thank you for your time. And if anyone has any questions for either myself or for Philip, I'm sure we'd be happy to reach out to you in using these new digital means in the coming weeks. Thank you so much, Philip.
Well, thank you, Jason. And it's always a great pleasure to work with you and to support the wonderful work of ICMA.
Thank you.